Hello YouTube friends and family, it's Frank here again. I'm just doing a follow-up video to the 5 reasons why you might want to buy in a 55 plus community. In this particular video, well first by the way, I like to introduce not just myself, but my dog here. This is Bentley, chilling out on the pillow a lot. He usually sits in this other pillow behind me, but I guess today, since I'm recording another little video, he decided he wanted to be a part of it. So that's our little pooch. He's a multi-poo, by the way. Anyways, back to this particular video. As I mentioned in the last video, I came up with 5 particular reasons why you might want to buy within the Villages, Florida, in a 55 plus community, actually. I mentioned I was going to try to come up with 5 reasons as to why you might not want to move to a 55 plus community. Well, after considering a lot of thoughts, a lot of topics on this matter, really, I can only come up with 4 reasons why you might not want to move to a 55 plus community. You've already been researching and you guys are already looking. So if you're watching this video, that typically is going to be because you are interested and you are looking into a 55 plus community, and a lot of people like to know the pros and the cons to living in such a community. I came up with 5 reasons why you should. I can only cough up 4 reasons why you shouldn't. Number 1, the Villages' homes are too close together, being that our neighbors are too close together. I think coming with that can be an issue, or at least people may seem to think that if we're too close to our neighbors and our homes are too close to each other, you could kind of reach out and touch the other house. People feel like when the houses are too close together, you can hear your neighbors in the next house. You can hear them sometimes if they're talking too loud, or if they're yelling at one another, and maybe they're engaged in some sort of an argument or some domestic dispute or something or whatever, and you can hear what's going on. Now that could be a good thing for somebody who might be in trouble, but that's what I'm getting at. The fact is that if you can hear your neighbors, then that might be too close, and some people just don't like that. It makes them feel uncomfortable. Another thing would be nosy neighbors.
Tim Avery, what are you doing in there?
Nosy neighbors.
In some of your 55 plus communities, it's kind of a tight-knit thing, as we talked about before. And sometimes you might get that Gladys Kravitz person, who are just nosy or all up in your business. And a lot of people don't like that. But believe it or not, and unbeknownst to you, there are people who may be looking out the window, watching what you're doing, looking to see who's coming in and out of your house and who are the strange vehicles in the driveway and just things like that. A lot of people don't like that kind of stuff. Some of the villages and the people can be rather cliquish. You may try to be outgoing and you want to, engage and interact with your neighbors, and then you just come to find out that some of the people form these groups and their little cliques, and they're really funny about inviting new people in, especially if you're kind of newer or you're younger. They don't want to let you into the little private clique. They get comfortable with their group of little friends within that community. Sometimes you may run into some rude neighbors.
Come over here and apologize.
I'm not apologizing to anybody. You're letting the cold air. Ain't that you criminal?
It's happened. I know the Villages, Florida is the friendliest hometown. And for the most part, that's true. Most everywhere I've gone in the Villages, there are just a lot of people who are just friendly. They'll wave at you. Another thing about, and this is still all in my number 1 category, you're going to hear constant lawn maintenance going on. I know for some folks who like to try to sleep in, even though I think the vast majority of the villagers who live in there go to bed early and they're getting up early, You know, and I sat there and I'll be at home there, and you can start hearing the weed eaters and the lawnmowers going off at the crack of dawn, it sounds like. Going to have to get used to that sort of thing. If that bothers you, well, maybe it's not the right place for you. Number 2 would be expenses. That's a drawback. That could be a downer and a negative towards a 55 plus community. So before you buy or you purchase, you know, you could always suggest renting down here, doing some lifestyle visits, doing some homework, talking to some of the people who are already here, you know, check out the expenses and some of the expenses that are going to be associated, at least within the villages. Some of it may be a little bit common knowledge amongst other retirement communities, but in the villages, we have amenity fees. You know, a lot of people don't think about that. What's it cost to live inside the bubble? You know, it's like going to Disneyland and you want a bottle of water and you're going to pay $4 for a bottle of water and $6 for a hot dog, you know, things like that, because you're buying within the Disneyland, right? Well, if you're buying and you're doing things within the bubble, within the villages, you're going to pay higher prices. I mean, that's just how it is. Some people may not like the idea of being approached by solicitors. If you'll look at your entrance gate when you come inside, where you scan your card or you push that red button, there's usually a sticker right there, and it says no solicitation, warranty, deed restrictions. So that means that solicitors are not allowed to go and solicit for your business inside that village. They're just not supposed to. Number 3, rules and deed restrictions. I may have touched on this a little bit, but we all know there are rules to any retirement community. There are going to be a set of deed restrictions. There may be HOA rules and policies or whatever. There are going to be rules and policies, not only just within that community, but things that are set by the state, things that they can and cannot do. And there are deed restrictions. And I'll give you just one example. You know, if you've got a magnolia tree, you've got some tree in your front yard, you know, and you want to take it up and plant a big old palm tree, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you really need to get ARC approval for that. Especially though, you're going to need ARC approval if you're going to do any remodifying or any changing of the house. You can't just have somebody come in and lay down a concrete pad because you want to build a little porch out front, you know, or a little deck someplace, you know. You can't add a bird cage or a lanai or a swimming pool, add on to your bedroom. All these need permits and ARC approval. If you have a stucco home, you cannot paint your house whatever color you want just because you don't like the color that you bought. You've got to get it approved first. I read a story where somebody had a yard. I guess they didn't like the grass or whatever. They were having problems with it, which most of us with that St. Augustine is a nightmare. That St. Augustine is awful. They just went with the cheapest grass that they could find. But somebody decided to change out their grass and they put down AstroTurf, an artificial grass. It looked okay. I mean, it looked clean, and the people were told they have to take it up. They spent all that money on it. You got to take it up and put real grass in there. They went to court and they lost. You can't just do what you want with certain things without ARC approval. And that's just part of the rules, you know, the covenants, if you will, the deed restrictions of buying and living in a retirement community, a 55 plus retirement community, right? And the villages is no exception to those kinds of things. Also, a negative for a lot of people would be in regards to your children and grandchildren. I don't have all the information in front of me as to what the exact rules really are verbatim. You can look it up yourself. It's all public information. But I do know that, you know, if you have children of a certain age, they can come and visit for a certain amount of time, like 30 days. Grandchildren, they're allowed to come and visit grandma and grandpa or something like that. They could stay there for a certain amount of time. You know, there are deeds and restrictions and rules in place in regards to, you know, those kinds of situations, and where you can take your family to, like the neighborhood pools. There's age restrictions, things on that. The family pools are set up for certain things. You know, the rec shower, there's times and there's hours. And so there's all these things that we're all expecting. And we actually sign, when you sign you are signing an agreement to those policies. Your name's on it. Number 4, misleading information. What does that necessarily mean? Misleading information. We really shouldn't be misled. And if we do our homework and we read up on any 55 plus community that we're thinking about moving to, whether it's the Villages or Del Webb or Margaritaville or somewhere in Gainesville, Florida, it doesn't matter what the location. They're going to have, you know, their advertisements. They're going to have their marketing tools and their advertisements, you know, and how they market their communities to potential residents. You know, they're trying to put out an information and a lifestyle to not just necessarily entice somebody, but is it to show this is what we have to offer. Some people think it might be just enticing. You know, when we researched the Villages, we saw all sorts of videos. We got out there. We saw this hoopla. We saw that. We saw all these kinds of different things. And then when we got there, we thought, a lot of that's true. It was a lot of golf carting. It was beautiful. It was all of the good and the positive things that the Villages is. And a lot of communities have a lot of good and positive things. But there's also some misleading things out there. So you have to be careful. You need to do your research. Don't buy or move into a retirement community without fully investigating everything. So that way you can't say, well, I was misled, or I was led to believe this, you know, and I bought into the Village's hype, or I bought into a Del Webb hype, you know, or I thought moving to Margaritaville was going to be margaritas and sunset beaches and stuff all the time. That's not going to be true. Not true at all. It can be to an extent, but the reality is that there's real life within these communities too. But anyway, folks, God bless. Best of luck to you in your search. Hope you have a great day, and thank you for watching. And we'll see you when we're down there as well.